G'day people, I'm Sharon and welcome. After my previous video about sewing cord on with the beading foot, I had a question from somebody saying, I've never seen beading put on. Can you show it? So I've been out and purchased some beading so that I can show you how to put it on with the beading foot. I've got several varieties. There's a gold one that I would estimate is probably 2mm wide, a white one that's a little bit wider, maybe 2.5 mils, a white one that's 4 mils, and I also bought a cord that is a bit bigger, and I'll put that on as well. Once again, I'm using patchwork fabric and I've got tearaway stabilizer underneath it. I've drawn some lines so that we can see how this is going to work, and I want to start with the line under the centre of the foot. These are the gold beads, which I would estimate are probably 2mm across. And I'm just going to start the machine with a regular zigzag. I don't actually need to put this on here. I'm going to let it hang. The machine's going to do a lock stitch to begin. You can see I am not actually moving the beads. I'm probably getting a bit too close to the edge of this fabric here and not having enough stabilizer underneath it. But as long as I allow the beads to just hang, all I'm trying to do is to get this marked curve in front of the foot. And the machine or the foot is moving the beads to wherever is in front of it. Now, I would suggest that's probably a bit wider than it needs to be. So if I adjust, and in fact I had this wider than it should have been. The beading foot said to have it at 3 mils. So I'm just going to keep going now with it at the smaller width. And I'm getting close to an edge where I don't have the stabilizer. Very definitely the wrong colour thread, and you can see when I had it wider, that was unnecessarily wide. 3mm on these will do fine. The next set of beads I'm going to use are in fact a little bit bigger than the gold ones. Pretty sure these ones said 2.5, and I'm not confident that's going to work in here. There's not a lot of room able to move, so I'm not happy to do that. I have changed to the bigger foot. These are very slightly bigger beads, and when I put them down under the small foot, they couldn't move. And I think for this foot you really need to allow at least a little bit of movement. Let's see how we go with this one, because you can see it actually shifts quite loosely. You can see that's quite a nice effect around there. I've got the machine set at 3mm width, so the deviation side to side, and 1.5mm forward, which would make sense for a bead that is 3mm. That seems to be going on quite well. I probably wouldn't want to sew much faster than this because I need to be able to see where that line is that I want to go on. I did draw my line so that I had some big curves going to a smaller one and then some little ones. Whoops, I missed the line. According to the roll of beads, these ones are 4mm. I think I will increase the stitch width to 4mm and the length to 2mm, and hopefully that will give me a nice arrangement around the beads. And all I'm really doing is trying to keep this line in front of the foot and not have the beads stuck anywhere. Once again, that is stitching on quite easily. Oops. I probably still could have done that with the 3mm width. I don't think it would have mattered. The final piece of cord that I want to use is basically like a little pipe, in terms of if you cut through it, the end of it is a circle. And I really want to make sure that I'm going to miss the cord on both sides, because if I actually sew through the cord, I will flatten it. So I'm going to go up to 5mm. And what I want to do is to try and keep the cord coming straight out in front so that it's not under any stress. getting much harder here because I am running out of tearaway. And you can see how the fabric then wants to bend up. So we've got a quite thick cording, 4mm beads. I think they're probably 2.5 mils, and the gold ones are 2 mils. The other thing I wanted to show you, you can see in each case I left some beads at the start. If I just cut these off, I'm going to have one or maybe more than one bead that is moving around. Rather than leaving beads hanging around off the end, you can just crush them with pliers. So a beading foot does a great job of putting beads on, as long as the fabric that you're putting it onto is not one that needs to be stretched. You could put it onto the skirt of a skating dress, for example, that doesn't need stretching, but you can't put it onto the body. You need to have that stretched as any beads are going on. There's a couple of different kinds of beads that this definitely will not work with. One of them I found when I went to the shop, and that was a bead that had a backing that's almost like a ladder of plastic. So 2 long lines of plastic with little rungs across. That wouldn't shift in the way that the machine needs it to shift in order to make the beading foot work. The other kind is like this. And these are a string of little beads in terms of there's a string and individual beads on it, but they are not attached to the string. And that means that if I was able to get it to work through the foot, all that needs to happen is for that string to break and the beads will start popping off. So the kinds of beads that you need are the ones that are firmly attached onto that cord. Each bead is attached, otherwise it just won't work. Hope you've learned something about beading with your sewing machine and what the beading foot does, and I shall see you next time.